Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Tuesday edition of our show. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grata. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by today to hear our thoughts on everything athletics baseball. Today is Tuesday, May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo to all who celebrate. Hope your day/evening are filled with tacos and perhaps a couple of margaritas to top off the festivities. But we are not talking Cinco de Mayo here. We're talking A's baseball as we've got a lot to get through. As first, we will recap what went down over the weekend to end their homestand at West Sacramento at Sutter Health Park. It ended in disappointing fashion as the A's dropped 2 out of 3 to the visiting Cleveland Guardians, although they did salvage the 3-game set by ending the series on a high note with their victory on Sunday. We'll be sure to break it all down, give out our three stars, and share our thoughts. And then from there, we already have some news of a trade. The A's were able to acquire Jonah Heim. Welcome home to where it all began at the major leagues for Jonah. We're going to take a look at how the deal went down and what his role may be on this A's team moving forward. And then before we get on out of here and prepare to enjoy another A's series as they embark back to the East Coast, they are preparing right now at the time of recording for their 3-game set in Philadelphia to take on the Phillies. We are going to give our series preview. Excited that the A's, coming off the weekend, still alone atop the AL West. Lots to unpack, lots to look forward to. Let's get to it. Holy Toledo, let's go A's. All right, there, A's Day fans. Thank you again so much for tuning in to our Tuesday edition of our show. Whenever you're listening to this edition of A's Day, we appreciate each and every one of you. Let's dive right in and get to the content and get to talking some A's baseball on this fine Cinco de Mayo. So we're going to jump right in and talk about what went down against the Cleveland Guardians over the weekend. Fresh off winning 3 series, A's looking to keep the good times rolling with some home cooking, welcoming in the Cleveland Guardians over the past weekend. We're going to do the first 2 games a little bit different. We're going to basically provide a recap of what went down and then dive a little bit more into Game 3, not to get it too far ahead of ourselves, but I'm sure that perhaps you're tuning in just to hear our thoughts on how the series went down. But nevertheless, if you didn't get to tune in, you'll at least know the results, some highlights from the game, and then we'll dive into a little bit further just because those first 2 games were quite tough to swallow. So Friday night in West Sacramento, Joey Cantillo getting the ball for the Cleveland Guardians going up against JT again. So in Game 1, Rhys Hoskins, he homered and drove in 3 runs. Chase DeLauder went 4 for 4 with 2 RBIs. And the Cleveland Guardians would go on to beat the A's 8-5 on Friday night. The A's, Nick Kurtz was walked by Hunter Gaddis in the 7th inning, his 20th straight game, with at least one to tie San Francisco's Barry Bonds, who did it back covering the end of the 2002 and beginning of 2003 season. For the second longest streak in Major League history, Detroit's Roy Cullenbine has the record with 22 consecutive games with a walk, which he set back in 1947. Kurtz also extended at the time his on-base streak to 26, but the reigning AL Rookie of the Year struck out against Cade Smith while representing the tying run in the 8th and finished 0 for 4 with the walk. Hoskins had a 2-run double against JT again to tie it at 4 in the 5th and hit a solo homer, his second of the season, to put Cleveland up 6-4 in the 7th following a go-ahead sacrifice fly by pinch hitter Angel Martinez. DeLauder hit a 2-run double that tied it at 2 with 2 outs in the 2nd. Cleveland led 8-4 when Kurtz walked to load the bases with no outs. Brent Rooker, who hit a 2-run homer to snap out of an 0 for 20 slump and give the A's an early 2-0 lead in the first, had an RBI single to chase Gaddis. Eric Sabrowski came in and struck out Darryl Hernandez and Tyler Soderstrom before 4-time Gold Glove winner Stephen Kwan chased down Colby Thomas's fly ball at the wall in center to keep the score at 8-5. Joey Cantillo allowed 4 runs and 5 hits with 3 walks in 4 innings for Cleveland. Smith got the final 4 outs for his 8th save in 10 opportunities. Zach Geloff had a 2-run single in the 4th to give the A's an initial 4-2 lead. Guardians rookie Travis Bazzana at the time started 0 for his first 9 through his first 3 games, but walked twice and scored the first 2 runs of his major league career. Ginn allowed 5 runs and 5 hits with 5 walks and 4 1/3 innings pitched. Cleveland now has won 22 of the last 27 games against the A's. Like we mentioned, Brett Rooker did hit a towering shot in the first to give the A's that early 2-0 lead, which I feel was a swing of frustration. He really needed to come out of the struggle since coming back from the IL. It had been a tough go of it. Hopefully that thunderous blast is a sign of things to come. So in this one, it was struggles all around. The A's couldn't really get much started in terms of runners in scoring position. Some of those early problems are presenting themselves once again, and it seems like it comes in waves. Sometimes they produce with runners in scoring position, and other times they don't. Where this team has gotten consistent, it seems, is generating more opportunities for themselves with runners in scoring position as they did early in the year, where it seemed like sometimes they would and sometimes they wouldn't. So perhaps this is the start. This is part of their progression of bearing down and having professional at-bats when the team needs them to cash in and add on to a lead or cut into a deficit, whatever the case may be. But 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position is just flat out not going to cut it. It's good that they had all those opportunities and those at-bats to perhaps grow on their lead or come back depending on what portion of the game they were at in this first game. But nevertheless, if you're not cashing in on those opportunities, you're just going to give the benefit to your opposition. JT Ginn, he gets touched up in this one. He was pretty good early on. He gave up 2 early runs, but then seemed to start to settle in a bit. But then in that 5th inning, he just couldn't escape. He just started to lose his command a bit, giving up a little bit louder contact. And that line just inflated a little bit. I thought worse than his performance truly was. Well, that is how it all goes. I mean, you are going to take into account the entirety of his start. And even if all the damage happens in 1 inning, it's still not a quality start. Jeff McNeil had another 2-hit game in this one as he has quietly heated up. At this point, his batting average peaked up to .295, so something to keep a note at and see if it went up from there or down. Time will have to tell. Got to try to tie the series up on Saturday in this one on a warm Sacramento Saturday affair as the home green and gold are donning their Sacramento yellows once again for their Saturday home games. Slade Ciccone would be getting the ball for the Guardians going up against Jacob Lopez. Jose Ramirez from the Guardians, he stole his 300th career base in this one. David Fry and Kyle Manzardo both hit home runs, and the Cleveland Guardians used a 4-run 5th inning to rally past the A's 14-6 on Saturday. Ramirez hit a 2-run double in the 5th that gave the Guardians their first lead at 4-3 before he stole third base. He became the second player in franchise history with 300 or more stolen bases. Joining Kenny Lofton, Ramirez also joined Starling Marte, Jose Altuve, and Trey Turner as the only active players to reach the mark. Shea Langoliers hit 2 homers for the A's, a 2-run shot in the first, and a solo blast in the 5th. Nick Kurtz was 2 for 5, but had his streak of consecutive games with a walk ended 20, unfortunately, which ends him tied for the second longest in Major League history. After Rhys Hoskins scored Ramirez on a sacrifice fly to put the Guardians up 5-3 in the 5th, Fry added his second homer of the season in the 6th. Rookie Travis Bazzana got his first Major League hit and RBI on a 2-run single in the 7th and immediately stole his first base. Manzardo added insurance in the top of the 8th with a 3-run homer. Brian Rocchio and Stephen Kwan had RBIs in the 9th to cap Cleveland's win. Austin Hedges hit his first homer of the season and 3rd for the Guardians. Slade Ciccone would earn his first win despite allowing 5 runs in 10 hits and 5 1/3 innings. Jacob Lopez gave up 6 runs and 8 hits in 5 1/3 innings for the A's. The win was the highest scoring game for Cleveland since it also scored 14 runs on June 28th back in 2023 against Kansas City. This was the toughest one of the weekend by far. I can live with Friday's result. I mean, you want to win them all. You want to get off to a strong start in a series, especially at home. But an 8-5 performance where it was back and forth, and Cleveland's playing a pretty good brand of baseball themselves. And their bats have really been humming a lot better than I had even expected. So shout out to them. They have been all over A's pitching at this point, grinding out at bats, making those guys work, getting into that bullpen. And actually in this one, which is kind of crazy, Lopez's command, I thought, was all right early in the game. especially through the first 4 innings, he actually looked a lot better. Didn't issue any walks at the time, but then loud contact led to his unraveling in the fourth and the fifth, where Cleveland, respectively, had a 4-run fourth and added one in the fifth, knocking out Lopez in the process. So it's still a work in progress now that it seems like Lopez has made a more concerted effort to fill up the strike zone. Now he has to find a way to consistently fill up the strike zone in more pitcher-friendly parts of the zone as compared to where it felt like Lopez was filling it up in a lot of hitter-friendly zones, and Cleveland bats simply were not missing it, especially in that fourth and fifth inning. And my apologies, I thought he was cruising along in those first three, and then the fourth is where he started running into some problems, obviously. But very interesting, definitely a little bit of a concern, and we'll continue to track Lopez. I didn't think it was enough still to talk about it on today's show. Want to give him at least perhaps one more go around, maybe work a little bit deeper into May to see if he can turn this thing around. Just because the Lopez we saw last year and the one that we've been treated to this year seem like two totally different pitchers. I don't know what was lost in translation, but last year it seemed like Lopez had the perfect mix, the perfect tempo. He was mixing his speeds, working all quadrants of the zone, getting ahead of hitters. Didn't really have the command issue, kept the walks down, and was striking out hitters at a pretty consistent clip. Now, the strikeouts haven't dipped down too much, but the walks have grown tremendously. So it's hard to say if it's a mechanical issue, if it's a confidence thing. Whatever the case may be, he needs to figure it out and fast, because I would say the A's have some young starters who are definitely knocking at the door that have been off to some impressive starts at the AAA and AA level, respectively. Could we perhaps see Gage Jump make his major league debut this year? Time will tell. He's been definitely effective at times. Jamie Arnold looks like the golden arm of the future. I don't think they want to press that button this early. I think they still would prefer to have him develop facing some professional hitters at the minor league level a bit longer before throwing him right into the major league pool. But there are, and then you do have a guy like Braden Nett, who I feel like we'll see him at some point this year. So there's definitely young guys that are buying their time and waiting to see if they'll get an opportunity to crack the A's rotation and stick there. But Lopez is going to have to clean it up sooner rather than later, because this is not the version of Lopez that we had envisioned coming in. And I think he'd be the first to tell you himself. But I would say that when he's right, it is a thing of beauty to watch him throw, watch him work efficiently through a game, working quickly, making hitters feel uncomfortable. And I know he's got it in him. He's just going to tap into that magic and find what some of those recipes, what the recipe for success was last year and what ingredients are missing this year that he needs to add back in to kind of find his way once again. But I would say a bigger concern would probably be Luis Morales here. And at this point, he gets called back up. He gets an opportunity, and he had a rough showing in this one. He went 2 innings, allowed 4 hits, 5 runs, 4 walks, 2 Ks. And something that we're seeing from Morales this year that we didn't see last year, and typically you would see this from younger pitchers, especially their first go-around at the major league level. At times, perhaps, they may display a certain lack of confidence. Perhaps some nerves come to light, whatever the case may be. But I think that's one thing that stood off the page last year when Morales, yes, he was having tons of success every fifth day getting the ball, having that high strikeout rate, blowing it past hitters, working all quadrants of the zone himself as well. You can see that he needed to make more of a concerted effort to have more consistency with his command. But there was so much to like about Morales' first go-around in 2025. Again, he's another one that I have some questions for. I don't know where that confidence left. I don't know what has changed. I don't know if maybe he's dealing with some sort of arm issue. Again, is it a mechanical thing? The velo's a little bit down. It seems a little bit sporadic. He doesn't feel like he has firm control of anything. He doesn't know exactly what button to push, it feels like, when he's out there in the mound right now. So, and since this game, he has been returned to AAA, so hopefully he can go back down there and get back to work, because there's something that is missing right now, and he's someone that has all the arm talent in the world. Morales is someone that is envisioned as a long-term piece in this A's rotation. So if he's going to go through his bumps and bruises better now as compared to when a little bit later down the road where he had a little bit more of a pedigree and started going down a consistent downward trend. If you can catch some of these issues early on in his development, there's plenty of time for him to turn it around in his young career. And I still think he's going to throw some important innings at some point this year. But right now it ain't right, and he's just got to get back on track to figure out what is going wrong right now, because everything is all over the place. It doesn't really feel like that he has much to give at this point at the major league level. Like, it just seems like guys are going to be able to sit on one pitch that works for him that day and tee off when he is in the zone. So we're rooting for him. Hope Luis Morales is able to figure it out. And if it's not this year, then let this year be a year of development for him, and then he comes back strong in 2027. But definitely concerning. He looked like a shell of what we came accustomed to through each performance last year. Hopefully just some minor tweaks, and he'll be back to being that starting pitching pillar that we can all envision and rally around. Series winning streak at this point ends at 3, which is unfortunate, as with Cleveland winning the first 2, they secure the series victory. But nevertheless, it is still important to have the ability to show that fight, show up the next day, do whatever it takes to get a victory to avoid being swept. I feel like there is no excuse to be swept at home, and you got to defend your home properly. A's would get the party started early in this one, as the pitching matchup would be left-handed pitcher Parker Messick, who is one of the exciting rookie southpaws in baseball, off to a strong start going up against the former Guardian, Aaron Savali. In the second, Colby Thomas, he hits a Colby Jack, his first of the year, to grab the early 1-0 lead. Chase DeLauder would get the Guardians on the board a little bit later on in this one via a solo home run to left to tie the game 1-1 in the 5th. A's, however, would have an immediate answer in the bottom of the inning. Zach Geloff and Tyler Soderstrom would go back-to-back, belly-to-belly. We understand, as we pause, that isn't an A's call, but wanted to pay homage to the longtime voice of the New York Yankees in the radio booth from 1989 to 2024, John Sterling, who passed away earlier yesterday morning at the age of 87, as the baseball world everywhere seems to be in mourning, wanting to honor him here with one of his numerous home run calls that made him so infectious and iconic in the booth. So we wanted to pay our respects here. With the back-to-back homers, A's move ahead 3-1. Brent Rooker would add an infield RBI single to cap the 3-run inning and move ahead 4-1. The DeLauder home run was the only blemish on Aaron Savali's line, as he was brilliant in this one. Savali went 6 innings, allowed 7 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 3 Ks. In the bottom of the 6th, McNeil would deliver the dagger as he clears the bases with a 3-run double to grow the A's lead to 7-1. And that's a good place for the green and gold to leave the score for the remainder of the game. It went Savali to Sterner to Leiter Jr. to Kunal. Ball game over. Athletics win. The Athletics win. Another homage to John Sterling to salvage one in a 3-game set. Cleveland did end up, like we mentioned, winning the series as they took 2 out of 3. The A's leave the weekend 18-16 and 2 games up in the American League West. So, shout out Aaron Savali. Absolutely brilliant. Again, bringing him in this offseason for $6 million. That seems like such a steal at this point. Savali just brings an air of confidence as a veteran that on his best day, his worst day, or somewhere in between, he's always going to give your team an opportunity to win, it feels like. And I know a couple of his years he ran into some bumps and bruises along the way, trying to rediscover who he was as a starting pitcher and then moving to the bullpen and then back to a starter. A lot of moving parts that can really affect the mental psyche of a pitcher. So I feel for Savali, this was a great landing spot in West Sacramento for all parties involved. For the A's, it lengthened their starting rotation to add a little bit more veteran reliability. And for Savali, it lands him in a place that he knows the team needs a starting pitcher. He knows that that is going to be his role for the season, unless something awful happened in terms of his performance. But if he went out there and he did the thing. He earned it every fifth day that his starting rotation spot would be his for the long term. And he's come out there and he's been one of their most consistent starters, if I had to be completely honest. I mean, outside of Jeffrey Springs, and Luis Severino has been rather good, especially lately, but there have been some bumps and bruises for him along the way early on in this year. But with Savali, I only remember him getting roughed up in one start. And even then, there have been worse starts that have led to some more some even more tremendous outcomes for the opposition. So nevertheless, I feel like Savali has been nails. He gets the win in a revenge game against one of his former teams in Cleveland. I believe that's where it all started for him. He looked great in this one. He scattered 7 hits, worked in and out of some trouble early, and then really got into a groove. But it's really been a nice revelation to see that Savali is returning to form as a reliable starter. Nice pickup, and glad he was able to do his part to help secure at least one victory in this 3-game set. And we saw the power display in full effect. 3 homers in this one. They strung them together. Always love a good back-to-back to really put the pressure on that opponent and to really put a stamp on that inning. And I feel like the A's really came to life in this one, and it felt like they came out with much more of a purpose than they did over their first 2 games, where it felt like they were almost taking it personally. They don't get swept at home. That's just now how it's going to go. This is the new A's where they're going to come back. They're going to swing. They're going to fight. And they're going to fight and claw for everything to do to avoid that sweep and to get that victory, which they do in this one. It was definitely an impressive collective team performance. They played much better defense in this one as well. It was just all around. This is the A's that we've grown accustomed to seeing over the last couple of weeks as they started stringing off some series victories. Ran into a good team in Cleveland, no harm and no foul. Got to shake it off. Now they're fresh off the off day, have an opportunity to win 6 ball games on the East Coast. But before we get to their East Coast trip and some trade news that went down, we're going to do our A's Day 3 stars to pick out 3 A's and highlight their performance from this weekend series. So for the 3rd star, he gets his first award of the 2026 season, Brent Rooker, who feels like that he's very close to turning a corner. Even some of his outs, I feel like, were higher velos. So I feel like Rook, coming back from the injured list, I feel like he's still gaining some strength in that oblique area. I do think you're going to see more and more of an improvement as he gets his feet settled into this 2026 season. But he went 5 for 14 in the series with a homer and 4 RBIs. Good signs, hopefully, of things to come. Our 2nd star, who we talked about for a bit, was Sunday's winning starting pitcher, Aaron Savali, who, again, he went 6 innings, allowed 7 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. I think it was really important for him to step up as that stopgap and know that if he puts his best foot forward and having the support of the offense and defense behind him, that nothing was going to get in his way or his team's way of avoiding the sweep and getting that much-needed victory on Sunday. And then our 1st star was someone that has been quietly on a tear because he hasn't necessarily done it with a ton of power, but he is generating a bunch of doubles for extra base hits, and that was prevalent in this one. And over the last 2.5 weeks or so, this guy has been swinging a hot stick. Of course, I'm talking about second baseman Jeff McNeil is our 1st star of this weekend series as he went 6 for 11 with 2 doubles and 5 RBIs. He collected 2 hits in each game of the 3-game set, so 3 consecutive multi-hit games. McNeil seems locked in. His average is now increased to .314. I think he's quietly having a nice little season there for the green and gold. I think providing his veteran presence, and he has a lot of versatility. He can hit in the middle, bottom, or top of the order and produce at any spot. And an honorable mention, we're going to mention Shea Langoliers. He only played in 2 games, but he did go 4 for 9 with 2 homers and 3 RBIs. And the reason why he wasn't around on Sunday, he might have DH'd, but he would have had the day off catching. He is a proud papa now. So congrats to Shea. Congrats to the Langoliers. New life, a new A's baby is on our planet. Langoliers is officially placed on the paternity list. Congrats. Enjoy these precious moments. You only get a handful, an ample amount of opportunity to really soak in that new chapter in your life, bringing in new life into this world, wishing that new baby nothing but love, happiness, and health. Congrats to the Langoliers once again. And that brings us to the close of our series recap of what went down over this past weekend against the Cleveland Guardians. So before heading to their next matchup, a trade actually went down, most likely due to Langoliers set to miss a few days here being on the paternity list. The A's were left a bit short-handed with catching depth, rightfully so. So they went out there and made a move. The A's have acquired catcher Jonah Heim from the Atlanta Braves in exchange for cash considerations. This move was announced yesterday, as the A's officially placed Langoliers on the paternity list yesterday. Heim, who is 30 years old, was designated for assignment by the Braves. He was batting .231 with 4 doubles, 1 homer, a .311 on-base percentage, and a .721 OPS in 12 games as the backup catcher for Atlanta. Overall, the switch hitter is batting .225 with 91 doubles and 69 home runs in 620 career Major League games. And he spent the career, he comes back to where it all started. Started off with the A's back in 2020, and then was a member of the Texas Rangers from 2021 through last year before kicking off this year with the Braves before being DFA'd to clear room, most likely for the return of Sean Murphy there. Heim was a member of the 2023 World Series champion Texas Rangers. Heim did end up making his Major League debut on August 25th of 2020 as a member of the A's. He was traded to Texas following that season along with designated hitter Chris Davis and right-handed pitcher Dane Acker in exchange for shortstop Elvis Andrus and catcher Aramis Garcia. In 13 games with the A's, Heim batted .211 with 5 RBIs. Welcome home, Heim. And he's someone that I've always liked behind the dish. And it seemed having that switch hitting catcher, I think it's a nice welcoming back to the organization. And I think it comes at a point, not even just in the short term, that they needed another catcher on the roster, but I think long-term Heim can provide some value. He's definitely shown plenty when he was the everyday catcher for Texas, when he was at the peak of his powers, that he can hit to all fields, he can hit with authority from both sides of the plate. Pretty strong behind the dish defensively, kind of gives you a little bit of everything. And coming off a down 2025 and battling some injuries over the last couple of years, I think that's why Texas wanted to part their ways and get some fresh blood behind the dish. Seemed like he was off to a decent start in a new backup role with Atlanta, but he was designated for assignment to clear space because Sean Murphy is coming back to assume his role. Most likely he's going to be the backup catcher in Atlanta behind second-year catcher Drake Baldwin, who was the 2020 National League Rookie of the Year. So it's crazy how time rolls along there, as Sean Murphy was the franchise catcher for the A's, and he was moved to Atlanta in exchange for Shea Langoliers. And now this move where Heim was in 2020, started with the A's, traded to the Rangers, then he gets picked up by the Braves, and then he gets moved back to the A's. It's just funny how, as big as this baseball world is, it's kind of small with certain moves that you see where it kind of, you can see some full circle moments and none the more circular than Heim at the current moment. Just a little fun fact for you. The last time the A's made the playoffs, well, Jonah Heim was on the roster. So, hey, maybe there's some good vibes with that. Maybe that's just a little cherry on top to help push this A's team forward. Now, I know that's not actually the reason why they brought in Heim, but I do think that's just a nice little bonus tidbit to keep a note of. So I think Heim, he's going to be on the roster at least until Langoliers gets back. I would think Langoliers would be back some point later this week. I know guys take certain amounts of differing times. Maybe you'll see Langoliers at the end of the Phillies season or series. If not, definitely at the beginning of the Orioles, I would say. So until then, Austin Wynn is going to assume the starting catching role, and Jonah Heim will be his backup. I would say probably when Langoliers gets back, Heim is going to get a lot of reps at AAA. Unless the A's for some reason want to travel or want to carry 3 catchers, which they've done before, but I don't think with the current construction of the roster right now that would make a ton of sense. But having Heim is someone who is going to stand out at AAA, I do think that is a very valuable asset to have, based especially at the catching position where you do need some depth. I mean, it's no secret that Austin Wynn has a pretty significant injury history, And you just never know what happens at that position. Those guys are involved on every play. Could always just be a foul ball that hits you in the wrong way. There's a lot that can go wrong, so it can't hurt to have insurance pieces in your organization. So bringing in someone like Heim, it's good to have him back where it basically all started for him, and see if he can have a some sort of a rejuvenation, because I see him long-term being a potential backup catcher to Langoliers, especially if Wins moves on to another organization after this season or whatever the case is, or unless the A's want to retain his services. Kind of all depends on how 2026 goes. There's a lot of moving parts to that. But I think Heim is definitely going to be in the equation, I would say more long-term. We'll see him this week, at least in the dugout. I don't know if he's going to get in on any action. I'm trying to think of their matchups coming up. If they wanted to play hitter-pitcher matchup, perhaps you'll see him against one of the righties of Wheeler, or I would say perhaps Painter if Langoliers isn't back, because that would mean Wins would have caught the first two. And then, maybe perhaps to preserve Wins' health, wouldn't want to catch him 3 games in a row. So I would say at this point, at most, we'll see Heim catch a game or two. Most likely it would be option to AAA, but don't be surprised if you see him at some point later on in the year. So welcome home, Jonah Heim. Looking forward to seeing him don the green and gold once again. This episode is brought to you by Visit Mesa, a destination for every season. Experience a destination where adventure, culture, and culinary experiences are limitless. As the gateway to the stunning Sonoran Desert and Tonto National Forest, Mesa invites you to explore its scenic waterways, kayak through winding canyons, or paddleboard along the Salt River. For a one-of-a-kind desert adventure, ride the waves at Revel Surf at Cannon Beach, the country's first surf park of its kind. Downtown Mesa is a vibrant hub, home to the Mesa Art Center, public art, award-winning breweries, and local shops. Food lovers can explore the Fresh Foodie Trail and the diverse flavors of Mesa's Asian District. Sports fans can experience MLB spring training with the Chicago Cubs and athletics, or visit one of North America's largest youth sports complexes. As the world's first autism-certified city, Mesa is dedicated to accessibility and inclusivity for all visitors. All right, let's get to the back half of our show and preview the Philadelphia Phillies. A's head back east to kick off another East Coast road trip with their first of 3 in Philly. They are led, the Phillies, by manager Don Mattingly, who is in the interim position for the remainder of the year after the Phillies fired their manager after 4 seasons, Rob Thompson. Topper got this team off to a 9-19 start before the Phillies felt they needed to shake it up at the managerial position. Phillies have been winners of 6 of the last 7 since the move at the manager position. They come into this one with a record of 15-20, and in their last series down in Miami, they did take 3 out of 4, concluding with a 1-0 victory, coming off the bat of Bryce Harper's solo home run and a terrific performance by right-hander Aaron Nola. Let's take a look at how the Phillies have been performing as an offense thus far. They're hitting .225 as a team for a batting average, which is 29th in baseball. They've hit 36 home runs, which is tied for 17th. They've scored 132 runs, which is 26th. They've walked 108 times, which is 26th, and they've struck out 275 times, which is 12th, hitting to a .671 OPS, which is 27th in baseball. On the mound, they've been pitching it to a .475 ERA, which is 26th. They've walked 108 batters, which is the 6th least. They've struck out 323 batters, which is the 2nd most. And they've pitched to a .147 whip, which is 27th. And defensively, they're fielding it at a .985 fielding percentage, which is 18th in baseball. And their 18 errors committed are tied for 17th in baseball. The A's still have committed the least amount of errors in all of baseball. They've only made 7, which is quite an impressive turnaround from 2025. As for the Phillies' projected starting lineup, there may be some interchangeable parts, but this is basically the core group of their position players. They'll be led off at shortstop, Trey Turner. Batting second, the designated hitter, Kyle Schwarber. Batting third at first base, Bryce Harper. Batting fourth in right field, Adolis Garcia. Batting fifth in left field, Brandon Marsh. Batting sixth, the catcher, JT Realmuto. Their backup, Garrett Stubbs, is in the 9-hole if Stubbs perhaps will be behind the dish in Game 3. Bryson Stott will be batting 7th at second base. Batting 8th over at third base, Alec Boehm. And batting 9th, center fielder, Justin Crawford. son of course, longtime MLB veteran Carl Crawford. Let's talk about some game times and starting pitching matchups in this 3-game set so you know when to tune in and which pitchers you'll be watching. So game 1 is later tonight, 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3:40 p.m. Pacific. Luis Severino, so again, happy Sevy Day to all who celebrate. He'll be taking the mound for the Green and Gold later tonight, going up against tough left-handed pitcher Christopher Sanchez. On Wednesday, tomorrow, will be Game 2, also 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3:40 p.m. Pacific. Jeffrey Springs will be getting the ball for the A's, going up against Zach Wheeler. And then the rubber match on Thursday, also a night game, 6:40 p.m. Eastern, 3:40 p.m. Pacific. JT Ginn getting the ball for the A's, going up against rookie right-hander Andrew Painter. Now let's get to know these Philly starting pitchers that the A's will be battling against. So in Game 1, they'll be going up against Christopher Sanchez, who is a left-handed pitcher. On the year thus far, he's made 7 starts, pitching to a 2-2 record with a 2.90 ERA. In 40 1/3 innings pitched, he's walked 13 batters, struck out 50, and pitched to a 1.51 whip. In his last start, he got the win against San Francisco, going 6 2/3 innings, allowing 4 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. His fastball velocity has averaged 94.7 miles an hour thus far on the 2026 campaign. And Sanchez likes to work with a 3-pitch repertoire, a sinker, changeup, and slider. Thus far this year, he continues to generate elite chase and whiff, as well as being able to get that strikeout pitch working. His chase percentage is 35.2, which is 87th percentile of all qualified pitchers in baseball, according to Baseball Savant. And additionally, his whiff percentage of 30.3 is in the 82nd percentile, and his 27.8 K percentage is also in the 82nd percentile. And he's also been really working that sinker well. He continues to be a strong, dominant ground ball pitcher. His 56.4 ground ball percentage ranks in the 92nd percentile of all qualified pitchers. Sanchez has solidified his status as an elite MLB starter and top-tier asset, known for his dominant changeup, heavy sinker, and elite command. He is recognized for having one of the best left arms in the game, frequently ranking among top pitcher lists due to his low walk rates and high ground ball rates. He stands in at 6'6", left-handed pitcher, like we mentioned, with high extension and a deceptive crossfire delivery that creates a high effective velocity. His changeup is his primary weapon, often considered one of the best pitches in all of baseball, yielding high chase rates. His sinker will sit 94 to 98, allowing him to attack hitters early and generate high ground ball rates. His slider comes in the low 80s to mid 80s. That provides a reliable third option to keep hitters off balance. His strengths focus on his elite control with the low walk rate, high ground ball, and consistent durability. He has transitioned from a 2-pitch starter with a sinker changeup into a 3-pitch pitcher, adding in that slider, which are now all grading out as plus pitches, making him one of the most reliable left-handed starters in all of baseball. The Game 2 starter will be right-handed pitcher Zach Wheeler. He's only made 2 starts this year, and we'll get to that in a minute. On the year, he is 1-0 with a 2.45 ERA. In 11 innings pitched, he's walked 5 batters, 14 strikeouts, and an even 1 whip. In his last start, he got the win at Miami, going 6 innings, allowing 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts, and through 2 starts, his fastball has averaged 94 miles an hour. He works with a 6-pitch repertoire, a fastball, sinker, sweeper, splitter, curveball, and cutter. He has shown good signs of getting back to that elite form early. His chase percentage is 41.7, his whiff percentage is 32.2, and his K percentage of 32.6 all rank in the 89th percentile or higher, and his ground ball percentage is right outside of that, but still at an elite level. 54.2 ground ball percentage, which is in the 88th percentile. Obviously, these numbers are going to change drastically the more innings he logs. The 35-year-old Wheeler has returned to the rotation following surgery for thoracic outlet syndrome and a 2025 shoulder blood clot. Early 2026 reports indicated reduced velocity, 90 to 92, and rehab command issues, but he remains a high-end command pitcher with an elite repertoire, aiming to regain his ace form. And since returning to action, it seems like he's knocking off that rust rather quickly. His early His ability to pitch down in the zone and use his hard curve and slider remain similar to reports from earlier in his career. Nevertheless, even if you're not going to get Zach Wheeler maybe at 100%, I'd say right now you're getting 85, 90% Wheeler, something like that. He's still going to be a tough customer for these A's hitters to deal with. They're going to have to be ready to hit. They're going to be getting two different looks, two elite starters in these first two games, one from the left side, one from the right, and they attack you in different ways. Both like to work lower in the zone, so perhaps the A's focus here will be looking to string together some singles as compared to try to hit the ball out of hitter-friendly Citizens Bank Park. Game 3 in the rubber match of this one, the A's hitters will be going up against right-handed pitching rookie Andrew Painter. Thus far this year, he's appeared in 6 games, 5 of those being starts, pitching to a 1-3 record with a 5.28 ERA. In 29 innings pitched, he's walked 9 batters, 28 strikeouts, and a 1.59 whip. In his last start, he lost at Miami. He went 5 innings, allowed 7 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. So not a bad start at all. His fastball has averaged 96.2 miles an hour thus far, which ranks in the 77th percentile. He also works with a 6-pitch repertoire like Wheeler, but a bit different. He works with a fastball, slider, sinker, curveball, splitter, and sweeper. He generates high-level chase with movement on pitches, coming in at 36.3 chase percentage, which ranks in the 92nd percentile. His expected ERA of 4.04 perhaps displaying he's running into some tough luck and perhaps softer contact finding holes early, where you'll see a little bit more regression to the median of perhaps some of his pitching line, like that ERA that seems a bit inflated, maybe coming back a little bit more where it's more deserving. He's given up a 32.6% hard hit rate, which ranks in the 81st percentile of all qualified pitchers. So definitely opposing hitters aren't getting a lot of quality barrels and swings off of him, but they are finding holes early. Painter features an elite 6-pitch mix, a 96 100-mile-an-hour fastball, a low 80s curve, hard upper 80s slider, a changeup, and like we mentioned, he's added in a split and a sweeper as well. Painter's fastball has more cut to it due to a lower arm slot, with his elite velocity remaining intact. It does have slight ride up into the zone with that cutting action as well, so it's definitely got to be a unique presentation of that four-seam fastball. After battling command issues in 2025 AAA, spring 2026 has shown that he has had a better return to form, and while the ERA has been a little bit high, his walk rate has been at a very manageable level at the major league level. He's now fully removed from 2023 Tommy John surgery, with 2025 serving as a 106 2/3 innings rehab-focused season and AAA. Definitely up and down in 2026 thus far. Good strikeout stuff, but lots of traffic to go along with it. So that's a wrap on who the A's offense will be going up against in this series. We'll see if the A's are ready for the challenge. Last year, these teams met in 3 games, and the Phillies went 2-1. They won 2 of 3 back in May of last year in West Sacramento. A's looking to now win the series in the Phillies' home. A's history against the Phillies starting pitching, so they've only faced off against Sanchez and Wheeler, and not a ton of success here, as they never faced Painter as he is a rookie. But against Sanchez, Langelier's lifetime is 2 for 4, and Jacob Wilson is 2 for 3 with a double. And against Zach Wheeler, McNeil, with all those years they faced off against each other, with McNeil playing all those years with the Mets and Wheeler being with the Phillies for so long, McNeil lifetime is 7 for 35, and Lawrence Butler lifetime against Wheeler is 1 for 3. We are going to make our A's Day home run prediction, as we selected Shea Langeliers, I believe, last series and got that one correct. So we have started a new home run prediction streak, and we are looking to make it 2 in a row. For this series in Philadelphia, we are going to select Nick Kurtz, the Big Amish, to hit at least 1 home run in this series. We feel he'll have a great opportunity, especially in games 2 and 3 when he faces off against some right-handed pitching, that I feel their pitching profiles will perhaps line up with more success opportunities for Kurtz as compared to tonight's starter, where I feel Sanchez is going to perhaps have the left-handed hitting Kurtz in some fits, just because of the way Sanchez attacks lefties. makes those very uncomfortable at bats. I'm not saying Kurtz can't. I'm not saying he won't, but I just feel more certain that there's a better chance that he would do it tomorrow or perhaps during Thursday's game. As for our series prediction, we believe that the A's are going to continue their strong efforts on the road, and we believe that they are going to win this series in Philadelphia by taking 2 out of 3. I think collectively, as these teams are playing right now, I understand that the Phillies are riding high. They're winning 6 of their last 7. I don't think the competition that they faced up against has been the strongest. Not to take anything away from their recent string of success, and perhaps the Phillies are waking up from their early season slumber. And if we're recapping the series and the Phillies go on to win this series, to protecting their home ballpark, won't be terribly surprised. We'll admit our mistakes, but at this point, I still feel the A's are more of a complete team. I do feel they are going to have their hands filled with Sanchez, and then if Wheeler has an opportunity to continue to improve upon his previous performance, to continue to look like the ace he was before he missed the back half of last year due to some scary injury setbacks and health issues that he had to deal with. Glad to see Wheeler back on the mound. But I will say that the Phillies bullpen does have some issues. Even if these starters have some good quality starts against this A's lineup, with the way the A's keep coming until that 27th out, they may have some success later in these games. So even A's fans, hang in there. Especially these first 2 games, it may look a little bit ugly offensive early, but don't give up on them, because I feel like their opportunities are going to open up later in these games against this bullpen, this Phillies bullpen, that has led to some susceptibility and has played their part as to why the Phillies have gotten off to the slower start that they have thus far. But we predict that the A's are going to lose tonight, a tough one, 4-3, before bouncing back to win games 2 and 3. We do feel they'll win tomorrow 5-1 before bouncing back in the rubber match 9-4. I feel like they're going to battle. They're going to hang in there against Wheeler and then open it up and against their bullpen in game 2. And in game 3, I just feel like after seeing nothing against Painter, but seeing the quality of pitches that they're going to see from Sanchez and Wheeler, it's almost going to feel like a sense of relief, where I feel like this A's offense is going to have a little bit more of an opportunity to open it up a bit more and see some more go through the hole. So we predict that they will take 2 out of 3 before moving on for the weekend for their 3-game set in Baltimore. But we're not talking about that. We are preparing to see the A's in action shortly against the Phillies. And with that, that brings us to the close of another edition of A's Day. We appreciate you stopping by on this Cinco de Mayo, or whenever you're listening to this edition of A's Day. We appreciate all of your support. On today's show, we recapped what went down over the weekend as the Cleveland Guardians came into Sutter Health Park in West Sacramento to take 2 out of 3. However, the A's did end the series on a strong note on Sunday, winning 7-1 to avoid being swept in their home ballpark. We also talked about a trade that went down as Jonah Heim was acquired from the Atlanta Braves for cash considerations. Heim comes back to the place where he got his Major League debut back in 2020. We will see how Heim shifts into his role within the A's organization. And then we provided our series preview with their next East Coast trip underway. First pitch at the time of recording is right around the corner, as the A's will be kicking off a 3-game set tonight in Philadelphia, taking on the Phillies. Again, that is 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3:40 p.m. Pacific. First pitch, Sevy going for the A's, going up against left-handed pitcher Christopher Sanchez. Should be a good pitching matchup. We are predicting that the A's are going to take 2 out of 3 in Philly and continue their road success. We'll be back behind the mic for Friday's show as we'll recap what goes down in this Philly series, as well as give you a preview of what to expect over the weekend as the A's will continue their East Coast swing, traveling down to Baltimore to take on the Orioles. That's all I have for you today. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank you so much to hearing our thoughts on athletics baseball. We appreciate all of you, and we get a ton of passion and joy from covering this young, hungry team that continues to ascend, and we look forward for them to remain at the top of the AL West for now, for tomorrow, and for the remainder of the 2026 season. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the A's action in Philly, and can't wait to have a happy pod for Friday. Till next time, Holy Toledo, Let's go A's.